Hi guys, bienvenidos to Todo en Vida podcast. I want to say welcome back, but honestly, I never went anywhere. I know it's been a while since I've recorded, but let's just kind of dive right into it. I've had this podcast and honestly, like I've said before, I knew that it was going to do something impactful. I just didn't know to what extent. And it's crazy because referring back to when I first started this podcast, I had wanted to finally talk about topics that I had gone through. And I know that a lot of people as well have gone through them. The second year that we did the podcast, which I believe we started it in 2024, right? Yeah, 2024. So we started the podcast in 2024. And again, I just wanted to be able to speak about topics that life experiences, honestly, even though these are topics, these are life experiences that I've gone through and have been able to overcome. And then going into 2025, I knew that I wanted to take the direction of the podcast to a point where, or in a direction that really allowed me to be able to say, okay, these things have happened, but now I'm coming out on the other end of it. Now, something I've been pretty vocal about is that when you have a certain mindset or you have a certain way of doing things or you have certain coping mechanisms, you always tend to refer back to them. And life is constantly evolving. We're constantly in different seasons, chapters of our life. And while it is about adjusting to the seasons that we're currently living or being able to kind of just depart from the seasons that we've already gone through, I think it's really important to be able to let go of the version of yourself that you were holding on to so bad that honestly wasn't really serving you purpose. And that's where I've been at the last few months. Now, I just come on the podcast and I go ahead and I talk and I speak about my situations. While I do hope that someone on the other end is listening and they need to hear it, I guess you could say not only are we our worst critics, but it's so hard for you to be able to soak in the fruits of your labor, soak in the recognition people give you, things like that. So honestly, me being on this podcast, over time, I started to think that I was put on this pedestal, or I was starting to think that I was put in this position that in reality, nobody put me in the position to coach you guys or teach you guys. I simply was here from the very beginning to just spread my message. And I think that that's why you guys ended up engaging with me so much and being attracted to the podcast and wanting, again, to just engage in it is because of the fact that I am so relatable. So let's go ahead, dive right in. I've always been super vulnerable. I've always been super vulnerable on this podcast. And it has been what's made it so valuable is the fact that I'm just, again, relatable. So on this podcast, I've always talked about faith and how faith definitely has been what pushes me through. However, it was starting to get to a point where I needed to be able to rewire my brain and recognize why certain coping mechanisms for me weren't working. Like I 1,000% believe, guys, that you can be avoidant to your emotions even through productivity. Okay. And I know people are like, well, how does that work if you're exuding your emotions through productivity, right? But that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah, you're exuding the emotions of like, let me go ahead and hustle. Let me get this money. Let me have good work ethic. However, you're neglecting the side of you where you really, really need to be able to kind of peel back all the layers and where you're currently at in life. Because I think we all get to a season where maybe certain things worked for us in the aspect of achieving certain goals. Like, for example, me, it was with my shop, right? When I first started waxing, I was like, when I get a shop, like that was my ultimate goal, right? It was like getting a shop, being able to have a financial freedom, financial independence. And now I'm here. And it's like, now what? What else is there to it? And I think we tend to all do that. Once I drop this weight, once I buy this house, once I buy this car. And that's something that we're all guilty of doing, right? So when we are stuck on like, okay, this is my goal, we do everything to be able to achieve that goal, right? And we kind of neglect the side of us that's like, okay, why are certain triggers coming up and things like that? And for me, before I used to just think like, okay, there's a trigger. All right, no. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. Now mention to you guys, okay, when triggers would come up in my life and I had a different way of handling them than obviously from when I was like 16, like, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, like you guys might think like, wow, she knows how to collect her emotions and be so well articulated when she speaks and when she's talking about them. But like, guys, when I was 16, 17, 18, you know, obviously younger, I don't want to say like a complete crash out, but if I had something on my mind, I was going to say it. And honestly, I didn't really care who was going to disagree with it, because I, you know, in my head, I'm like, I'm standing on business. I'm saying what I got to say. And, you know, a lot of times that's how I was tending to lose my power, right? Because you exude all this energy. And a lot of times you're exuding energy on things you can't control, people you can't control, things that people say that you can't control, down to even my business. Like, I can't control my books, right? So what ended up happening was, when I was younger, I was a lot more reactive. And then I got to a point in time where I started to experience solitude. And I think that time alone, and this is over the course of the years, okay? This is like leading up to the podcast and everything. So I was put in a position of solitude where I had enough time with myself that I was able to process my emotions a little bit better and find different ways or different strategies on how to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. But at that time, I mentioned to you guys, it's like meticulous things, right? It's just like things that I could obtain. So the things that I was doing was to obtain certain things that I thought personally were going to fill my cup. And it's crazy because that's something that I've said on the podcast so many times. Like, you're going to reach a certain level of financial freedom or financial independence, or you're going to be able to work hard to get that dream job, that dream house, whatever it is, right? You're going to be able to do that. And then once you get to that point, I think we all come to a point of realizing, like, I'm now in this season of my life, but the things that I've done to get here are no longer working for me. And that can shift your mind to literally almost to the point where you don't even recognize yourself, right? Because you're like, okay, well, the things that I'm doing are not serving me in the way that they used to serve me anymore, right? And I think that a lot of people come to that point, and it's almost like an identity crisis. Like, you're like, well, who am I? Then that's where I was. I was like, who am I? Who is this version of myself? Because I'm here preaching that if you want to get something done, all gas, no brakes. And, you know, if you want to achieve greatness, just achieve it, and X, Y, and Z, right? But then I started to live life where I'll tell you guys, you know, again, where I've been at the last few months. If you guys know, or if you guys have been listening on the podcast, I did not talk to my family for a really long time. And to be honest, I think I preferred it that way at that season in my life, because it's what would shelter me. And I don't want to say like shelter me, but it's what would protect me, pues, you know? It would protect me in a way that, like, I didn't want to reopen up old wounds, or I didn't want to experience this version of myself anymore, because I figured I had spent enough time alone to be able to know that I wasn't that person anymore, right? And so then it's crazy because, again, if you guys have been listening, when I was on Horizon Podcast, I had said, I want to surrender, right? So just kind of backtrack a little bit, timeline here. I went on the podcast. I'm saying all the things I've experienced. I came in with a clear message for 2025 that I wanted to shift the energy to redirection and how we move forward. And then 2025 starts to unravel. And I think God put me in that exact position. Like, okay, you want to surrender? I'm going to take away all the things that you know how to do, the coping mechanisms, the outlets that you've had before. I'm going to go ahead and take all those things away and show you that they're no longer working for you. And not only that, but I'm going to bring back people into your life that you're going to have to, and I don't want to say like you're going to have to meet in the middle, but when I wasn't talking to my family for a really long time, I put myself in this shelter of that's what it was going to be for the rest of my life. Like, I was not going to continue to have a relationship with my family. I was just going to stay in solitude. And that's exactly what I knew how to do, right? And then, some of my family members started to come back around. And in the beginning, right? And I'll tell you guys how this all kind of correlates, right? So at the beginning, when that kind of came up, I was really, really hesitant. I was really nervous. I was like, you know, and when I got the text to meet up with my family member, I really didn't know how to respond to it, because again, I had told myself for probably like almost going on 6 years that I could fend for myself. I could be there for myself, that through financial freedom, I wouldn't have to ask nobody for nothing. And quite frankly, I kind of got to a point of being like, well, I don't need to have a relationship with anybody, right? So then I meet up with my family, not all of them, but I met up with, specific people in my family. And prior to the meetup, I was asked, like, if you've been hurt by them so bad and to stay away, why are you going to meet up with them? Right? And I kind of had to think about that one because I was like, well, the Ashley that I've known has always been one to protect herself and just not give things, just certain energy. And I said, I don't know. I was like, I think because at one point I did really love them and I want to be able to hear and see what they have to say. And in hopes that over time, there's been growth, because deep down, the walls and the barriers that I had put up, or the things that I knew to use, right? The coping mechanisms that I knew how to use to be able to protect myself were no longer working, right? Like, because now I'm like, okay, I know I have a certain mentality to block out, I don't know what you want to call it. Like, I don't want to say like negativity, because in this case, it's crazy. Like, it was honestly just a huge misunderstanding. But for so long, I ended up telling myself, like, you don't need to be around these people. You don't need to be around these people and whatever. And I kind of just build up these walls, right? And the way that I would be able to cope with it was like through working, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this situation with my family is because sometimes you're going to come to a certain point in life where you think that you have it all figured out, and you think that you've already mastered how to be able to protect yourself, how to not be vulnerable. And honestly, there is strength in being able to be vulnerable and shift your mentality and be able to adapt and grow as life goes on. Because honestly, that's the only way you're going to know if you are growing or not, is if triggers come about and how you're going to handle them differently. And so whatever. So that had happened, right? And for a really long time, I gave it a lot of my energy because I just wanted to protect myself deep down. That's all I wanted to do. And mention to you, during the time for me trying to protect myself, I'm telling myself, like, the goal is to get X, Y, and Z. Dude, God has given me everything that I've asked for and then more. And then I got to a place where I'm like, none of the things that I've been doing to get me here are working anymore. Not the relationships that I have with family members, not the relationships that I've had in the past, not the relationship, most importantly, that I've had with myself. Like, I came to a point where I felt like I didn't even recognize myself, because I'm like, dude, everything that I've preached, all the coping mechanisms that I've had before are no longer working. And I think that I got so caught up in trying to master life that I wasn't really living life, right? Because in my head, I'm like, okay, I have to have these goals. I have to, I want to make a certain amount a year. I want to be able to have financial freedom. I want to buy a house. I want to do this and that. And next thing you know, I'm realizing that I'm working to be able to achieve these things that I think are going to fill my cup. And that was the biggest joke I could have played on myself, because now I'm tired emotionally from trying to keep up these walls, because I'm now a different version of myself, that now I'm also tired physically, because I'm working to be able to kind of just block them out. And I mentioned you, I'm one that it's like, if you want it, get it. If you don't want to tolerate something, don't. If and I don't want to say that like you have to lower your standards, because that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that you have to lower your standards in order for you to change or adapt to the new person that you are. But I think you also have to learn how to be able to accept this version of yourself and seek new ways of pouring into yourself and pouring into your mental health, because the things that I was doing in the past just were no longer working. And it got to a point where I was giving it so much of my energy that I literally felt powerless. Because every single day I'm trying to control everything around me. And why do you guys think I was doing that? I was doing that to have security. I was doing that to have safety. And I'm so headstrong on, again, if you want something, get it. There's no excuses, all gas, no brakes. And then I'm realizing that mindset is no longer working for me. But I've come to accept that it served its purpose in the season of my life that I needed it. when I needed that survival mentality, I had it and it got me on the other end of it, which is amazing. But now I'm trying to utilize those same tools that I would use to just survive. And now in a time and place where my life is peaceful. And now the problem is me. How am I growing? What am I doing to pour into my cup? And, I've talked a lot about last year. I talked a lot about boundaries and how to set boundaries. And that was the first step, right? It was setting those boundaries with the people around me, but also to being able to pour into myself, set certain boundaries for myself, and even try to have a certain a certain system that'll work. But I didn't know how to get there. I did not know how to get there. Okay. I was to the point where I'm like, dude, this isn't me. I'm literally going to work to just work. I'm coming home. It feels like there's not enough hours in the day. And I really was like, I felt like I was losing my spark. I was like, is this going to be my fall off? Like, was I just going to have a period in time and season where, if you guys have known, and I was talking to my producer about this before we even started, I've had so many blessings come down on me through social media. I've gotten recognized in public. It's opened the doors for me to receive like PR packages, people that come to me, people that I've met throughout life, whether they come to my business, whether I see them out in public and they recognize me. And it's just honestly been so, so cool, right? So now I'm on a podcast and I'm preaching about, like, if you don't want something, let it go. And if it doesn't serve you purpose, let it go. But guys, even me, I got to a point where I was like, I don't know how to let this go. And I know that, not to get too into, religion or nothing like that, but it does say in the Bible to cast all your anxieties onto him. And I'm one of those people that I overthink so much that I'm like, I don't even know how to cast all my anxieties on him. And that's the part of me that's flesh, right? Because I'm like, okay, and then even then it's like, Ash, but you're so big on faith. Right, I am so big on faith, but I had already seen God work through me and around me during the season of survival. But now that I'm here, it's like, okay, I feel him working around me, but how do I even expand that part of learning how to cast all my anxieties on him? I'm such an overthinker that I'm like, how do I live the day-to-day life and leave that up to him? And that's why I had to come to a point of recognition, like, because I want control so bad, because I want security so bad. And I was almost like psyching myself out because I thought, when I'm put in this position to, dude, nobody put that expectation on me to where, I was a spokesperson for like mental health. Like, no. I was just being vulnerable on a podcast. I'm talking. Next thing you know, the videos are blowing up. And I'm like, okay. And trust me, as much as you think that I lived my day to day, like growing up, my brothers would always tell me like, Ashley, like, try not to cuss or whatever. But my brothers would always tell me like, Ashley, you really don't care. Like, you really don't give a F. Like, they would always tell me that. And I'd be like, no, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I'm going to be me unapologetically. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to be the same exact person, so that if there's ever a side of me that you get, it's not coming like out of nowhere. Right. And I think that again served me in the season that it was meant to serve me, in that kind of mentality where like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to promote myself. Like, oh yeah, how my brothers would say like, oh yeah, you don't give a F. Like, no, it's like at the time I was just so driven, so ambitious. And now I'm like, okay, that survival mentality served its purpose. Now that I'm here, I'm trying to uphold everything by having control. And in the end, I ended up feeling so powerless. But isn't this what I asked for? Like, isn't this what I asked for? I asked to be able to surrender myself. I asked to be able to cast all my anxieties on the Lord. I asked I would tell God, help me rewire my brain. Help me rewire my brain, because the things that I'm doing are no longer working. And it almost made me feel like I was kind of like, to a certain extent, like disassociated with myself, because I'm like, well, again, all the things you've known are not serving you any longer. So who is this version of yourself? And honestly, guys, I didn't even know. I had to figure it out. And I was talking to my client the other day about it, and she's like, but it's so hard. She's like, how do you figure it out? And I could tell she was wholeheartedly asking me, like, how do you figure it out? And I told her, I don't know how to figure it out. All I know is that the things that I was doing are no longer working for me. So if I could try anything else other than this, I'm going to try it. And what did that really entail? That entailed me just simply pouring into myself. But you go through a season where you have to, and I've always said it, you have to come to the point of recognition, of recognizing, again, what is no longer serving me purpose. Showing gratitude to the time that it did. Being able to separate yourself from the season that you're no longer living in. Because now you have the blessing of being able to work on yourself. And at the time, it doesn't feel like a blessing, guys. Being able to work on yourself sometimes does not feel like a blessing. Whether it was someone that broke up with you, whether it was, I'm so busy with work, I don't have time for myself. All of a sudden, your books are slow. Work is getting slow. Now you have time to work on yourself and you're like, whoa. And you chase all the things that kind of keep you busy from meeting with yourself. Like sometimes you have to be able to meet with yourself and say, okay, what season of life am I in and how do I want to go ahead and move forward? And what that caused me to do, trying to uphold all the security that I've known to have, right? Like I would work because I'm like, okay, if I have money in the bank, then I know for sure I'm not going to be homeless. I know that I have transportation. I know that I'll have food. I'll know that just everything else will be good around me. And let me tell you guys something too that I was told so it says it in the Bible, God blesses the poor, right? And I know on the other end, we're like, all right, well, I don't want to have to be poor for God to bless me, right? Okay. But the thing is that you could be poor in spirit. You could be poor in faith. You could be poor financially, right? But the thing is that when we're at our lowest, that's when we look for him the most, right? So once we're there, we say, okay, we start to look for answers. And if you had life just figured out, where you always had money in the bank, where you never had to go through any trials or tribulations, I honestly don't think that you would be able to, one, appreciate life and the good moments that it does have, because everything is a season, tanto bueno como mal, even if it's good or bad, it's a good or bad season. It's just going to be a season and it's very short-lived. And unfortunately, the truth is you have to go through the bad to be able to appreciate the good. And I'm speaking for myself. Now, I'm sure that everybody, I would at least hope that you guys have the intention to make an impact wherever you guys are at, whether that's within your family, within your workplace, within your relationship, but most importantly, for yourself. I think that if you have the ability to make an impact on someone else, I 1,000% feel that the enemy is just going to attack you even greater, even stronger. And that's exactly where I was. And what ended up happening where it kind of like broke the chain was I have a younger cousin, and these are things that I'm living to be able to almost kind of like see myself through them. And so what ended up happening was there was a situation that happened, whatever, and my cousin's getting these phone calls. Mention you, she's young, she's 22. So she's getting all these phone calls, and my cousin along the way, every time a new phone call would come up, she would repeat the story all over again. And it would make her emotional. It would make her upset. It would make her constantly be repeating what had happened, right? And people would on the other end of on the other end of the line would be like, "Dang, that's crazy." Da, da, da. But the point is that every time someone new called, it set her up to give it all this energy, exactly what had happened. And honestly, I seen it draining her, right? I physically seen it draining her. And I thought to myself where I was at 22. And I probably did the same thing, right? Where I had homegirls call me and we would talk about it. And, I think we all tend to do that, is that when we are feeling something, we go to the people closest to us. I think more women than men. I think men kind of just shut down and they try to figure it out on their own. But us women, we want to be able to talk about it. We want to be able to call up our best friend and be like, "What do you think about this? This is that." But at the end of the day, they don't have the answers for you. And while it's a blessing to be able to have people on the other line that can hear you out, they don't really have the answer for you. They only have comfort, right? But what I saw from that situation is I saw how much my cousin was exuding her emotions and exuding her energy every single time somebody new called. And I told her, I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I said, we're going to clean the house. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to meal prep, and we're going to have a productive day. Because while internally we feel down or we feel drained, at least we know that our environment is a lot better. And maybe we don't have the energy or the motivation right now to go on a walk, but if that's going to take the energy that you're currently using to repeat the same story over and over again on the phone, use that same energy and exude it towards something that's going to have you progress. Now, I'm not saying that an hour walk is going to give you your dream body overnight, but if you can just be like 1% better every single day, I think that that's going to be more impactful and eventually make a difference within you over time. And that's just what I had to do. I had to be able to see the triggers around me that were coming up and really be able to measure my growth and see where I had honestly fell short. And I couldn't understand why I was falling short when the methods or the coping mechanisms that I've used to get myself this far have worked up until I got this far. And then I get this far and then I'm like, nothing's working anymore. And isn't that crazy? Like, you'll ask God for something and he ends up giving it to you. And I've always said this on every of the podcasts I've been on, is God gives it to you in the way that you need it, not in the way that you want it. And it's funny because when I was talking with my client the other day and she was like, but how? Like, how do you find what works for you? Or how do you, switch the things around or whatever? And I think that we go in this hamster wheel of constantly getting tired when we avoid the things we need to do for ourselves or the rewiring of our brain that we need to do for ourselves. And where does that take you guys? It takes you to a place of either being anxious, short fused. You can even go down a deep road of depression like that. Because why? Because the things that you were doing are no longer serving you purpose and you can't recognize that, yet you're holding on to a season of your life that served its purpose when the season was had. And now it's time to elevate. And I think that's where the true strength comes from. And being able to realize that the more you try to be in control of things, the less you're actually in control. And the more you drain your energy and the less you feel like you have any power. And that can mess with your self-confidence. And then it's like, okay, we get to this point and now what do we do? I'll be the first to tell you guys that I got on this podcast just telling you guys how I figured it out. And along the way, I got so caught up in wanting to soak up every single moment, every single second of my life, that I forgot to actually just live each season. And it's like, and I'm one where you can ask, I mean, if you guys ever got the opportunity to, but if you ask anybody around me, those that are closest to me, I'm an overthinker to the max. I know you guys probably think that I exude all this confidence and I just know, and like I'm this like A++ business owner and I'm just a successful podcast. And it's like, oh my God, y'all, how many times I got to tell you guys, do not believe everything that meets the eye. No todo lo que brilla es oro. Like, and I'm not saying that to diminish myself. I'm saying it to remain humble. Always, 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 always. Because God is constantly working through me, around me. And even when I got into a really dark place of not being able to recognize what are the things that I wanted, I couldn't recognize what I wanted, but I could clearly recognize that the things that I've been doing were no longer working for me. And I think I did it, if I'm being 100% vulnerable, I think I did it from a place of like fear. I did it from a place of just wanting security. Fear of getting hurt again by my family, fear of spending my 20s exuding all this energy on the things that did not matter to me, fear of not wanting to get hurt again. And that can be in any aspect, because I'm telling you guys, I'm an overthinker. When I feel things, oh my goodness, I feel things probably more than I should, but maybe in another lifetime, tal vez no fuera tan llorona, tan, like, and maybe in another life, I wouldn't be so sensitive. But that's what makes me me. And that's what has given me that appreciation to life that while I thought I was appreciating it, I was actually just getting so caught up in living it that I wasn't really appreciating any of the moments. And mention to you guys, I, from a young age, had this like, and I think we all do that, where we have this like timeline on our life. Like by this age, I'm going to be married. By this age, I'm going to have kids. It's right. So I try to control all of that. Yeah, I started my business when I was 24. I got married when I was 25, going to be 26. And I had all these like plans for myself. And I was so dead, like so headstrong, so set on the fact that this is what my life was going to be like, because I'm in control, because I'm headstrong, because I'm Ashley Estrada and I can just get it done. And all the things that I've been through are not going to knock me from wanting the future that I want, and I'm going to achieve it. And guys, I'm going to be 29 in April. I'm not married. I don't have kids. And yes, while I have my business, I've also had to learn who I am outside of that, but also to learn to be able to appreciate the outcome of the methods and the things that I use to be able to get this far. You know what I'm saying? Like now I'm 28, I'm going to be 29, and I'm realizing that like life is really meant to be lived. And when you try to control every single aspect of your life, it's going to make you feel powerless. It's going to make you feel drained. It's going to put you in a cloud of uncertainty where you're not even going to know who you are. And then it's so, right, it feels at least that it's so embarrassing or discouraging to think that your life was going to unravel a certain way. And then you come to an age where you're tested once again, right? And I don't think that these tests are meant to ever hurt you, because I don't think any test from God is a punishment. I always think it's a blessing. And we might not see it in the moment, but you end up seeing it in the long run. You just got to be patient enough to be able to live it through. And I think that was the whole point of this podcast and the original intention of this podcast. And that was to just be relatable. That was, maybe you guys listened to these episodes at a time and place where you needed to be able to move forward from it and push through it. And if I could have given you guys that strength or exuded that strength at that point in time, hey, I'll come to accept that. But now, okay, that page is turned. It's normal to have developed anxiety. It's normal to have gone into a place of depression. It's normal to question yourself and say, where am I at in life right now? Because I don't even recognize this version of myself. I don't like what I'm seeing in the mirror. I don't like my reactions to certain things. And that's okay. Don't let it discourage you so bad to a point where you just give up, where you just say, okay, like, for example, like, I did not know that I had like separation anxiety. I didn't even know I had anxiety in general. I didn't even know that I had episodes of, where depression would hit, because again, I'm exuding myself emotionally and physically. And I didn't know that all those things existed. And so when I started to encounter and realize like, okay, this is what's going on in my life. I said, so what am I supposed to do? Just live with it? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I don't know how to fix this. Like, I don't know what to do from here on out moving forward. I don't know what to do. But I told myself, I'm like, okay, I told myself, well, not myself. I was talking with someone and I told them, I feel broken. I feel broken. Mention to you guys, it's kind of like when someone tells you, you're a really good mom and every day you question if you're a good mom or not. It's like when someone tells you, congratulations, your business is thriving. And you're like, little do you know, I just had 5,000 in my account yesterday and today I'm left with 200. It's kind of like when people try to give you credit and you don't know how to accept it. And that was something that I had said before, guys. Like, I always felt like the success that I've had came from a place of grief, or it has been my coping mechanism to be avoidant to my emotions. And I always just thought that it was just me being strong and strong and strong, and not realizing that the more I try to hold things together, the more I was actually falling apart. Because the things that I was doing in the past to get me this far are no longer working. Like, okay, like I'll give you an example, right? I'm one that if I feel some type of way about something, I'm going to say it. And I figured that if I spoke up on something, my mentality was like, I'm not going to let myself. I'm going to respect myself. They're going to know I feel this way about this and that. And the truth is that I could go and express myself and say how I feel and say my perspective on certain things. That's not going to change the perspective of the person who I'm speaking to. It's not going to change anything. It's like I'm not in control of anything. And the more I started to realize I'm literally not in control of anything, and the only thing that I can do is control myself, control my perspective, and also to be merciful on myself. I think that I seeked a lot of validation through the things that I was doing, whether that's cleaning my house, being fully booked, filming the podcast, whatever it was. I just thought that I was in control of everything. And I think that that's the message here is when you say you want to surrender, don't be surprised when all the things that you've known to do to get you this far in life start to wither away because you're wanting to surrender. So if you're wanting to surrender, that takes kind of like you diving in to the fear of the unknown. And that comes back to what has always been at the center of this podcast, which is faith. And this message that I'm giving you guys today comes back to the center of this podcast, which is I'm a human like everybody else. But don't be so blinded in trying to obtain that goal or that position in life that either you hold on to the season that no longer is serving you purpose, or you're not learning to embrace the season that is where you need to be at right now. And I know everyone's like, okay, but how do you change it? That's the whole point I'm trying to say here too, is we don't know. We're just figuring it out. And along the way, it's okay to be gracious with yourself. But it's also coming from a person that I am the least gracious with myself. I always feel like I need to have everything on point. And when I don't, it makes me double, triple, quadruple think my value sometimes. And realizing that my value is not tied to the things that I do. And you can put boundaries with other people, but like put boundaries with yourself as well. And whether that is, the boundary could be, hey, anytime I feel something, I'm going to speak on it. Put the boundary with yourself of saying like, well, what does that really get me? What is that going to do for me? And I've been reading the Let Them Theory. And it's a book that if you guys haven't read, it's amazing, by the way. It's by Mel Robbins. She has a really, really, really good podcast. And it just talks about like mental health, how to better your time management, your finances, how to help with anxiety and things like that. And it was cool because I am quick to be able to be aware of myself. Yet where I was stumbling was I didn't know how to change it. And again, it's like, well, if I'm so headstrong and so driven in certain things, then why can't I achieve, controlling my emotions a little bit better, holding on to my energy a little bit more. And the thing is like, if you guys can either read the book or tune into her podcast, and they tell you how your brain is programmed to think a certain way, or your brain, when it feels fear, it responds a certain way. And over the course of time, throughout the longevity of your life, you have learned to react a certain way to whatever it is, whatever it is, right? Whether it's you wanting to protect yourself or achieve certain things, your brain gets stuck in the patterns that right? And I started to say, okay, well, these are the patterns that I've known, but they're no longer working for me. So what is going to change? And it was crazy because I had to come to the understanding and the realization that everything I thought I once knew, I no longer did. I no longer knew that because it wasn't working for me now in this season of my life. because I wanted to be less anxious. I wanted to be less stressed out because I was blaming everything around me. The stress of the business, having to show up for other people, even having to be on the podcast. And realistically, nobody put those standards on me. It was just myself, because I always had this drive and this motivation to want to achieve something in life. And then I achieved it. And I almost let that become my entire identity. And then once it did, right, because I was like, oh, like I almost was like wearing my stripes and my heart on my sleeve proudly. And then I was like, but I'm 28 and I don't want that to be the story of the rest of my life. I don't want to be known for just being strong. Like I want to be known too for like knowing how to be at peace with myself, how to be less reactive. I'm very headstrong, guys. And while that is a great thing, that's a great quality I love about myself, to be headstrong and perseverant, I also want to be able to know how to be at peace with myself when I'm outside of survival. And that being in tune with myself and being just more centered in life, honestly, is what makes me feel better. But again, that came before I could like say that I'm appreciating this season of my life. I had to completely detach from the fact that I was just being so hard on myself. Like having my business, I'd be like, okay, I love my business and that's what helps me work hard. And, and that's what it helps me, achieve the things that I want to in life. But then when I came to the realization of like, hey, no, I want to enjoy my days off, because having myself in order or being able to do things for myself is what now fills my cup. And literally I was like panicking. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I no longer a hustler? Is this going to be my fall off? Like, what is this? What is this new season? It's a season of surrendering. I haven't even, and I'm like, isn't that what I asked for? Isn't that literally what I asked for? So it's like, okay, now I'm here. What do I do? What do we all do? Whatever you're clearly doing right now is no longer working for you. Because to some extent or another, whether you use whatever it is you use to be avoidant of your own emotions and of your own progression for yourself, is exactly why you keep hitting like a cap, where it's like, okay, I'm doing everything I've known to do, but it's no longer fulfilling me. And you're reaching a point where it's like, okay, that worked for you when it did. It's no longer working for you. What can I go ahead and change? And I saw myself becoming someone who I really wasn't. I saw myself always complaining, always wanting to have control of everything, being so uptight. And that's literally far from who I am. I'm a very ambitious person, but I'm also funny. I'm also super loving. I also love to enjoy time with my family. And I think that I also came to a point in time where I would talk a lot about it. Kind of like how I referred back to my cousin on that phone call. I would talk a lot about it, and I was just running in circles because I would rather talk about it with other people than sit with my own emotions. And then when I came to the realization that I wanted to sit with my emotions, I went into like hermit mode, where literally everyone's hitting me up like, hey, have you been good? And I just felt so disassociated from who I really was. And it's like, okay, well, now we're here. Who's Ashley now? And I think it's important to, again, like I've said, don't get so caught up in trying to be so great in life and achieve all these wonderful things that you forget to experience life in itself, or you forget to live that life for the most important person, and that's you. So wherever you're out there right now, if you're currently struggling with anything, just know that it's all about perspective and motivation. You're not going to feel it every day. Dude, if you wait to be motivated to start something, to do something, it's just never going to come. But I think that if you can set up a certain program and be more kind to yourself during the learning process of being able to execute that program, I think that you'll start to see a shift, and you'll start to see that it's important to just be a little bit better than you were yesterday. But it's also important that when you trip and you stumble, that you get back up, because it feels better to keep trying than to stay where you're at in life. Honestly. And also too, just try to enjoy the season that you're in. Even if you don't know why you're experiencing it, remember what I said. God does bless the poor, and you're not going to be targeted if you don't have a purpose. And something that I was told is like, Ashley, you have a way of reaching people and obtaining an audience. And honestly, if you guys know me, you guys know I am not a cocky person. I'm a humble person. Nobody would know that there's days where I don't feel confident, but hey, I still exude it when I need to. And sorry guys, but the way that I exude that is being centered with myself, okay? Is doing the things that are allowing me to learn this new version of myself, and it's serving me a purpose. The things that I used to do served me purpose in the season that I needed to experience it. But now I want to just be more, I guess you could say, like, not only just centered with myself, but more aware of like, hey, nobody has these expectations for me. Reaching certain goals are not going to be what validate me. And all the things and all the moments of strength that you had to have during survival season of your life, I'm really proud of myself that I was able to overcome that. But now it's like, okay, if I'm in this season, it's relatable to everybody that we all don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to progress one day at a time. And back to what I said, like, do not get so worried. And I think that this stems from, if I've already had a whole episode on that, but I think it really stems from my grief, because I got that anxiety of like seeing people's time run out in front of me, that I was so scared that I didn't want my own time to run out. So I try to utilize every second of every day, and I put so much on my plate that life is passing me by, and all the things that I thought I knew or wanted or was going to have by a certain time, God is constantly reminding me that He's the one that's in control. And that if I didn't have a purpose here, then I would probably just be living peacefully, right? Like if I didn't have any problems, if I didn't have any struggles, if I didn't have any trials and tribulations, I would never have gone to experience His grace and His love and His mercy. And that's ultimately what has carried me through. That's also been the little voice in my head that tells me, this isn't working. This isn't fulfilling me. And I got to do something to change it. So with that being said, I'm going to leave y'all with that, because it's just a reminder that none of us know what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. And if you come to be in a point in life where all the things that you once knew are no longer serving you purpose, thank that version of yourself for surviving when he or she needed to. And now you turn the page, and turning the page, that's probably the hardest part, because you have to sit with yourself and you have to take back control over your emotions and your energy. And that can be hard to do when you feel so broken. But the thing is you're not broken. You're just being redefined. You're being redirected. And whatever that looks like for you guys, just know, shut out the outside noise, sit with yourself, look at whatever you're doing for yourself and see what's working, see what's not, and what's not, just try to redirect it. It sounds way easier said than done, because I got to a point where I was anxious. I'm pretty sure I was depressed too, and I didn't even know it. And I didn't know how to show up for others, let alone myself. But now I think that that's something that I'm okay with. I'm okay with showing up authentically and making it very clear that life is meant to be lived. And I think that's why we're all figuring it out along the way. And that's pretty much about it. I love you guys. Sorry it took me so long to figure that one out. Okay. I cannot be on a platform and not stay true to myself. And I know it's important to stay consistent and everything like that, but I really want to have this podcast with intention. And I've been saying it. But I want you guys to really be able to get to know Ash for who she is. And for me to be able to be vulnerable and say, like, you know, I am different than what people think. Like, people think I'm just like super outgoing. I'm always on 10. And this new version of myself, guys, I actually like privacy. I actually really like keeping some things to myself. I've also come to realize too that while my transparency has been a blessing to so many, I know that it's also okay to keep some things to myself because there is a beauty in privacy. And I just appreciate everybody that's been with me along the way. Guys, going into 2026, I've had direction every other year of my life. I've had purpose every year of my life, and I've had things that I want to execute. Granted, while I'm not living life aimlessly, I think I've put so much pressure on trying to perfect life that each day is passing me by, and I still wasn't feeling fulfilled. But I know I've done a lot of good. I know I've made an impact. And I know while I've stayed humble, I'm also in a season of just trusting whatever God has for me. And I hope you guys can do the same thing. Please, 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 always give yourself a moment to sit with yourself. Be vulnerable. If you can't be vulnerable with anybody else, be vulnerable with yourself. Why am I reacting like this? Anger is a secondary emotion. What am I really feeling? Is it pain? Is it fear? If I'm feeling anxious, it's avoidance. What am I avoiding? For example, oh my gosh, all the clothes is piling up. The dishes are piling up. The bills are piling up. It's just avoidance because you guys have to get these things done. And that can trigger anxiety. From there, it goes to like depression. And oh my gosh, it starts to spiral really, really quickly. So just know you guys aren't alone. And while that's a really unfortunate place to be, we've all been there. We just all carry it differently. But do not ignore that voice in your head that's telling you to redirect your life, that's telling you that you want better. And also, too, do not use ways of productivity to avoid your emotions, because that is also a thing, guys. You cleaning the house and having $1 million in your bank account, it's not going to be what fulfills you, because no money is ever enough. And you can clean the entire house, and by the end of the day, something is dirty. So that's just a perfect example of trying to be in control of everything, have that security and safety, and ultimately, it's not going to be had. Like, it's not everything's going to be perfect. Don't be so hard on yourself. I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for following this journey with me. This is just the start of, want to say, whatever God is going to redirect me in. And I hope to be able to, just record more. I just had to, I had to have a season of figuring it out. And I was very different from who I usually am, which is I put everything out there and I figure it out along the way. But this season was for me. And I appreciate you guys for following me along. And I appreciate you guys for loving me in this new season that I'm in. Love yourself too. Don't be so hard on yourself. And what else can I tell you guys other than God bless you guys wherever you guys are at? Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that my message was direct, clear, and heartfelt. And if it resonates with you, make sure you guys go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Todo En Vida Podcast. Also, too, we're on TikTok, Spotify, all that great stuff. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please don't be so hard on yourself. Each season is meant to be lived and experienced, not perfected. Love you guys. Bye.